So it is August 2023, and I am noticing that the corporate media isn't talking about two recent polls which showed that as many as 11% of voters are ready to vote for the likely third party candidates, Dr. Cornel West and Senator Joe Manchin. Now, of course, I don't think that we should accept the corporate media's suppression of this important information. And so, for that, here's a breakdown of these two recent polls. Let's start with the poll from McLaughlin and Associates, which was done in the third week of July and got no press coverage. They asked 1,000 likely voters if the general election for president were held today, among the following candidates, for whom would you vote? And they listed all the major candidates, which is good because not every pollster does that. What they found here was that Donald Trump, Republican Party, 40%, Joe Biden, Democrat Party, 38%, Cornel West, Green Party, 6%, Joe Manchin, No Labels Party, 5%, and 12% undecided. So that 11% for both of them combined is definitely enough to swing an election. But I think that the real number is a lot higher. And here's why. If you look at the details of who took the poll, you find that 36% were Republican, 36% were Democrat, and 28% were independent. And that's a problem because we can go over to Gallup, which has been asking Americans questions about party affiliation for decades. And they have Democrats at 25%, Republicans at 27%, and independents at 45%. So obviously, if the poll had been more representative of independents, who are basically half the country now, the poll would have likely found Cornel West and Joe Manchin much higher than the 6% and the 5%, probably even 15 to 20%, especially combined. And something really important is that this McLaughlin poll is not the only poll showing that 1 out of 10 voters are ready to vote third party. Let's look at the Echelon Insights poll, which was done in the fourth week of July, so right after the McLaughlin poll. The big news there is that, like in the McLaughlin poll, the Echelon poll showed a combined 11% of likely voters are wanting to vote third party. That's major because that means you have two different polling firms asking two different sets of likely voters, and both polls got that same 11% for third-party presidential candidates. And look at this. I want to point out that 11% in the Echelon poll is especially impressive because of some of the details in how the poll was conducted. Details which probably worked to the disadvantage of third parties. See how it says in the question, quote, randomize 1 to 2? I think what that means is that they alternated between reading off Trump first or Biden first, and only then went off to list the third party options. So obviously, that's not a great polling practice. Every candidate should get an equal opportunity to be named first, and to be named last, and to be named in the middle. Otherwise, responses might be biased, say toward the first option that people saw if it was an online poll, or heard if it was a telephone poll. And yet, in spite of that very poor polling design, which likely worked against third parties, this Echelon poll still was able to detect 11% support for third-party presidential candidates, just as the McLaughlin poll had done in the week before. Last time there were third-party polling numbers like this was in 1992, when there was a vibrant three-way race between Bill Clinton, George Bush 1, and Ross Perot. Perot got almost 20% of the vote, and that was without the aid of things like modern social media, which has obviously changed the game. I think it's totally possible that the United States in 2024 will see a breakthrough presidential candidate from a third party. Because the game's up. The American people are disgusted by the Democrats and by the Republicans. And we are due for a political realignment. That's when new parties come to the forefront and new coalitions are built. Happens around every 30 to 40 years. And it's clearly happening now. And because of that, it is definitely the case that third parties will play a decisive leading role in the 2024 elections. Thank you for being engaged and for listening.